It started with sirens. Distant at first, then louder, urgent. I remember glancing at the clock, 2:17 a.m. The kind of hour when silence usually wraps the neighborhood like a heavy blanket. But that night, it was shredded by the pulsing scream of emergency lights dancing across my ceiling. I threw the covers off and bolted to the window. Red and blue strobes flickered against the walls of our pristine gated community, the kind where everything from mailbox height to the shade of your shutters is controlled by committee. At first I thought it was a fire. Then I saw the ambulance. It was parked just outside the front gate. I squinted through the blinds and realized it wasn't moving. Just sitting there, engine running, lights on. But the gate, our immaculate ornamental gate, remained stubbornly shut. My gut twisted. That was Harold's house they were trying to get to. He lived just 3 doors down. Nice guy, retired electrician. Heart issues. I'd helped him carry groceries more than once. His wife, Linda, sometimes dropped off lemon bars during the holidays. Slipped on shoes, grabbed my phone, and rushed out the door. A few other neighbors had stirred, standing on their driveways in confused, half-dressed clusters. I ran toward the entrance. That's when I saw it up close, the paramedics pacing, shouting into radios. One of them trying code after code on the keypad, another banging on the call box, desperately trying to reach someone inside. The gate didn't budge. No override, I asked, breathless. It's HOA controlled, one of them snapped, not unkindly, just panicked. We were told they disabled universal access. Minutes passed. The gate stayed closed. By the time they got in, he was already gone. We moved into Rosewood Hills 5 years ago. At the time, it felt like winning some kind of suburban lottery. Gated entry, quiet streets, identical lawns trimmed like military buzz cuts. Every neighbor's smile came with just enough teeth to seem friendly, but not so much that you'd ever mistake it for genuine warmth. It was controlled, and I'll admit at first that kind of order felt safe, predictable, especially after the chaos we left behind in the city. You had to pass 2 background checks just to rent here, and 3 to buy. But that was the draw. Security. Peace. Or, at least that's how they sold it to us. Our house sat on Maple Circle, not far from the entrance. We had a view of the pond and one of the 2 fountains they lit up every night with color-changing LEDs. My wife loved it, said it felt like a resort. But over time, the cracks started showing. Take Harold Benton, for instance. He lived down the Chew street with his wife, Linda. Sweet couple. Harold had survived 2 heart attacks in the past decade. He was one of those guys who knew every neighbor's name and probably everyone's dog's name, too. He moved a little slower, always wore this old blue windbreaker, and walked with a cane that clicked faintly against the pavement. The kind of neighbor who waved whether you waved back or not. We used to talk in the mornings. He'd be walking, while I took out the trash. Said he liked the quiet here. It's peaceful, he'd say, as long as you follow the rules. Then there was Marlene Crenshaw, president of the HOA, the kind of woman who wielded authority like a sword and a spreadsheet at the same time. She wore power suits to community meetings and always had a Bluetooth earpiece like she was waiting on a call from the Pentagon. I never saw her smile unless it was during an HOA fine dispute. She'd been in charge for years, and under her watch, even chalk drawings on sidewalks had become a matter of formal reprimand. Marlene didn't just enforce the rules, she lived for them. The way she saw it, the gates were sacred, a line between us and them. She fought tooth and nail to keep delivery drivers from entering without an escort, had signs posted about non-resident access control, and sent out monthly. Emails reminding us that even temporary codes were a privilege, not a right. The gates, she said, were what made Rosewood Hills special, untouchable, secure. My buddy Greg, a retired EMT and veteran who lived across the street, always rolled his eyes at that. You know what gates do? He told me one day while we were working on my car. They buy you about 30 seconds of false comfort and 2 minutes of liability. That's it. I didn't think much of it at the time. The gate system had already had its hiccups. Amazon drivers stranded, food deliveries dumped by the curb because they couldn't get in, and even a plumber once had to wait outside for an hour while a pipe burst in someone's guest bathroom. But those were inconveniences, not tragedies. Not yet. We all laughed those things off, chalked them up to tight security. But after a while, the laughter started sounding nervous, especially when people realized the HOA had disabled emergency vehicle access months ago without telling anyone. That gate, the symbol of safety we all paid for, turned out to be a trap we never saw coming. It was my dog, Jasper, who heard the sirens first. He barked once, then twice, then scrambled off the bed and toward the window, ears perked, tail stiff. I rubbed the sleep out of my eyes and followed him. That's when I saw the lights flashing red against the trees that lined the perimeter wall. I checked my phone, 2:17 a.m., again with that hour. I opened the window, leaned out, and listened. Sirens close and urgent right outside the gate. Not just passing by, stuck there. Then my phone buzzed. A message from Linda Benton. Please help. It's Harold. I called 911. They're at the gate, can't get in. I didn't even think. Threw on a hoodie, grabbed my phone, and ran. By the time I reached the main entrance, the ambulance was already there. Lights painting the brick columns and metal gate in panic colors. 2 paramedics were outside, moving fast but visibly frustrated. One of them had a radio in hand. The other was punching numbers into the keypad at the call box. No answer, one of them muttered. Code's not working. I stepped forward. Harold Benton, House 203, I live 3 doors down. You know the code? He asked. I tried mine. Denied. I tried the visitor access code from the last HOA email. Denied. No response from dispatch, the other medic said. They tried calling the HOA emergency line. It's dead. We need someone to open this gate now. I called Marlene Crenshaw, straight to voicemail. I called the HOA emergency number posted on the sign, an answering machine. No override. No key, no code. Everything digital, everything locked. Can't you break it down? I asked, my voice rising. The younger paramedic looked at me. We could try to ram it, but if we damage it, we're liable. And if it's reinforced steel like it looks, we could waste more time and still not get through. I looked back at the gate. Behind it, I could see the outline of Linda's porch. Light. It looked like a faint candle in the distance. Time stretched. They tried another code. Nothing. Pacing, phone calls, static-filled radio chatter. Still nothing. I could hear the disbelief in Linda's voice when she called me seconds later. Is this really happening? She asked. I had no answer. I could barely look at her house. I could almost feel Harold inside, alone, gasping for air. More neighbors showed up. Flashlights, bathrobes, confusion. Someone tried the side entrance, locked tight. The fire department had been called too, but they were farther out. The older paramedic cursed under his breath. We're losing time. I stared at the gate, 4 inches thick, decorative iron lattice, top-lined with ornamental spikes. Beautiful, and utterly useless. We were locked in. They were locked out, and Harold Benton was dying. Finally, after what felt like a century, though I later learned it was just over 11 minutes, the gate buzzed, clicked, and slid open. Probably some delayed override kicking in from the security company, who had finally gotten a call from dispatch. The ambulance tore through like a bullet, tires screeching as it turned onto Maple Circle. I followed on foot, sprinting, lungs burning. When I reached their house, the front door was wide open. Linda was on the porch, sobbing into her hands. The medics were inside. The lights in the living room cast long shadows onto the lawn. No shouting, no rush, just silence. One of the medics stepped. Outside, his gloves stained, his expression grim. He met Linda's eyes and shook his head once, solemn and final. She screamed, loud, the kind of scream that breaks the night. I stood frozen, heart pounding, unable to move. The whole street seemed to stop breathing. Another neighbor put an arm around her, but it didn't matter. The damage was done. Harold Benton was dead, and all the security we'd paid for, all the rules we'd followed, all the codes and controls and layers of protection, none of it had saved him. It had killed him. That gate didn't keep danger out. It locked help out. And in the middle of the night, when it mattered most, Rosewood Hills showed us just how deadly peace and order could become. 2 days after Harold's death, the HOA called an emergency meeting. That word, emergency, rang like a cruel joke. We gathered in the clubhouse, the same overly perfumed room where we'd once voted on patio furniture and approved a new koi pond. But that night the air was stiff with anger. Folding chairs scraped against the tile as people filed in, murmuring, whispering, waiting. Marlene Crenshaw stood at the front like a politician at a press conference, dressed in her usual slate gray suit, lips pressed into a tight line. The rest of the board sat beside her, visibly uncomfortable but silent. No one from Harold's family was there. Linda hadn't left her house since that night. "First and foremost," Marlene began, "we want to express our condolences to the Benton family during this difficult time." She didn't even say Harold's name. There were no flowers. No pause for silence. "We've reviewed the situation thoroughly," she continued, clicking her remote to bring up a slideshow on the clubhouse TV. "According to our system logs, there was a technical malfunction with the gate access controller. Delayed emergency response for approximately 11 minutes. She said it like she was reading the weather. My jaw clenched. The murmurs started behind me. Confused, irritated. Marlene raised a hand like a traffic cop. "We understand. Motions are high, but no system is perfect. Unfortunately, this was a rare and unpredictable failure." I stood up. "That's a lie." Heads turned. A few gasps. But no one told me to sit down. There was no malfunction. The paramedics said the universal code didn't work. They tried the call box, the keypad, everything. "You locked them out." Marlene gave a tight smile, eyes cold. "Sir, I understand your frustration, but I can assure you the board has followed all standard safety protocols." "Bullshit," I snapped. "You disabled the emergency access months ago, didn't you? Because you were afraid of unauthorized visitors. God forbid a pizza delivery gets through the gates without a DNA test." There were nods, angry whispers, people shifting in their chairs. Marlene straightened. "That decision was made by board consensus due to recent security concerns. You didn't tell anyone. Not the residents, not the emergency services, not even the damn security company. And there's no manual override, no key. You turned this place into a fortress and forgot what gates are for." Someone behind me added, "We called the emergency line." No answer. That's not a malfunction. That's negligence. The board members looked nervous. Marlene didn't blink. "The emergency number was temporarily down due to a VoIP server issue. It has since been resolved. VoIP server issue." Like that explained everything. "And what about the override? Where's the backup key? Where's the manual release?" I pressed silence. "There isn't one, is there?" Marlene's smile faltered. "That's privileged infrastructure information, not subject to public distribution for safety reasons. So, again, you locked them out." At that, she snapped back into control mode. "This meeting is becoming disruptive. I must remind residents that any public accusations against the board without evidence may be subject to HOA disciplinary action. That includes formal warnings and potential fines." There it was, the threat, the subtle warning wrapped in HOA policy. Speak out, pay up. Some of the room went quiet. People looked at their laps, unsure, but not everyone. The tension in Rosewood Hills began to shift that night. People were still polite in the daylight, still trimmed their hedges and waved at passing golf carts. But in whispered corners and late-night texts, the truth started to spread. That gate wasn't broken. It was designed to shut us in and shut others out, until it cost someone their life. Linda didn't speak to anyone for days, but when she did, she told me something that stuck. They killed him. They just didn't use a weapon. She wasn't wrong, and if Marlene thought a fine would shut me up, she had no idea what was coming. Linda didn't say much at first. The days after Harold's death were a fog of casseroles, condolence cards, and awkward sidewalk encounters where neighbors avoided eye contact. She kept to herself, but something in her changed, something quiet, but sharp. like a wire pulled tight. Then one morning she knocked on my door with a folder in her hand and, eyes full of fire, "I'm suing them," she said, "and I need your help." She wasn't asking, she was telling. I didn't hesitate. "Whatever you need." We started with the paper trail. I combed through old HOA emails, every newsletter, every notice, every bulletin Marlene ever sent. And there it was, buried in a meeting summary from 3 months prior. A vague line about reducing code distribution and deactivating external access due to recurring misuse by non-residents. Linda got a copy of the Paramedics incident report. It confirmed everything. They'd tried the gate for over 10 minutes, called dispatch, tried all known codes. Nothing worked. The delay was directly tied to the access system, and most damning of all, there was no override provided to first responders. It was deliberate, a decision made to preserve security. We found a few neighbors brave enough to speak out. Greg, the retired EMT, was one of the first. "That gate cost him his life," he said in his statement, "and it was completely preventable." Others followed. People who'd had deliveries stranded, contractors locked out, or seen the gate glitch on stormy days. One woman even admitted her own father had been delayed when he came to help during a medical scare last year. Linda filed the lawsuit: wrongful death, gross negligence, and reckless endangerment. The papers hit the HOA office like a thunderclap. Then the media got wind of it. "HOA gate killed my husband," read the headline on Channel 9. A photo of Linda, framed by Harold's favorite azalea bushes, ran beneath it. Her eyes looked tired, but her spine was straight as a steel beam. Public outrage exploded. Social media tore the HOA apart. Comments flooded with fury. "This is why people hate HOAs. Security over humanity? This woman deserves justice." Even HOA forums started buzzing with debate over the dangers of over-securitizing communities. The insurance companies got involved next, one for the HOA, one for the gate system. Suddenly, everyone had lawyers. Everyone wanted to point fingers in different directions, but the paper trail was clear. Marlene Crenshaw had signed the vote to disable emergency access. We got a hold of the meeting minutes. Her exact words: "We can't allow the gate to be compromised by every delivery guy with a badge and a smile." There was no ambiguity. She viewed access, not just convenience access, but life or death access, as threat. So they shut it down. Quietly, no warning, no emergency backup plan, and Harold Benton paid the price. Linda was offered a settlement, quiet money, designed to make the problem disappear. The HOA's lawyer called it a gesture of compassion. 6 figures. She turned it down without blinking. "I don't want their money," she told me. "I want the truth on record. I want them held responsible, and I want that gate changed, permanently." I watched the fear in the board's eyes grow with every legal motion filed, every news segment aired. The HOA that once ruled by fear now scrambled to save face. Marlene tried to play the victim in an interview, said she never intended harm. But the community wasn't buying it anymore. You could feel the shift. People started talking freely. No more whispered warnings. No more looking over shoulders at the clubhouse. The fortress had cracked. And the woman they thought they could intimidate, she was just getting started. The courtroom was packed the day the verdict came down. Reporters lined the hallway. Neighbors filled the benches. And Linda sat beside me in the front row, hands folded calmly in her lap. She didn't flinch when the jury foreperson stood. Didn't blink when the judge read the decision. The HOA was found liable, gross negligence, wrongful death. The payout was massive, 7 figures including punitive damages. It made headlines statewide. But Linda didn't smile. She just closed her eyes for a long moment, as if she were finally letting go of something heavy she'd been carrying since the night Harold died. Marlene Crenshaw wasn't there. She'd resigned just days before the verdict, citing health concerns. But no one missed the way she was served court papers on her front lawn, caught on camera by the local news. Her name was publicly linked to the vote that disabled the emergency gate access. Her reputation, once so tightly managed, was now buried under the weight of her own hubris. The rest of the HOA board followed suit, resigning one by one in quiet disgrace. The community held a special election shortly after. This time it wasn't held behind closed doors. It was streamed open and transparent. The first vote? Restructuring the HOA charter to include mandatory oversight by residents not on the board. No more unchecked decisions. No more hidden policies. A new gate system was installed within weeks. It had a 24/7 override line directly connected to first responders, backup power, and, most importantly, manual keys stored in a secured fire-resistant lockbox accessible to emergency personnel. No more secrets. No more excuses. A plaque was even mounted on the gate's stone pillar, in memory of Harold. Benton. May no call for help go unanswered. Linda used part of the settlement to start a non-profit, Open Arms. It provided grants and advocacy for elderly residents in HOA-run communities, especially those where policies put them at risk. She said Harold would have liked that. He always waved at everyone, after all. The paramedics who tried to save him were honored at a community event months later. The same neighbors who once feared speaking out stood and applauded them. There were tears and apologies and change. And me? I still live here, but it doesn't feel the same anymore. Not worse, just real. The illusion of safety we all clung to, that gates and codes and rules would protect us, it shattered that night. We saw what happens when power goes unchecked, when policy replaces compassion, when security becomes a weapon to control instead of a tool to protect. Harold wasn't the first person to suffer because of a bad rule, but he was the last in this neighborhood, because we fought back, because Linda refused to be quiet, and because every gate, no matter how strong or high or digitally reinforced, has two sides. And sometimes the real danger isn't what you're trying to keep out, it's what you trap inside. It happened again, weeks later. Late one night, just as I was shutting off the porch light, I heard sirens in the distance, low, steady, getting closer. Jasper lifted his head from the rug but didn't bark this time. We both listened. Then the red and blue glow flickered against the trees. For a second, my chest tightened. I slipped on my shoes and jogged down the street, heart thudding with déjà vu. But as I reached the corner near the gate, I stopped short. The ambulance didn't even slow down. The gate, our gate, was already sliding open, smooth and automatic. No delay, no confusion, no pleading at the call box. Just open. The paramedics rolled in without hesitation, headlights slicing through the dark, tires humming over the pavers as they disappeared down the main road. I stood there, breath catching, in my throat, watching it all happen in seconds. Then, as quietly as it opened, the gate began to close behind them, slow, deliberate, and almost peaceful. One life lost. But because of it, others won't be. And now, when seconds count, the gate opens always,